All right, Aaron, we've been talking about conceptual drawing strategies as opposed to a set of the application of grammatical rules as you learned in the way that you were initially taught to draw. And we've explored a number of different ways of thinking about the idea of conceptual, and beginning with an understanding of a task, and the order in which you proceed through the task, having to do with the nature of the task and what one is trying to demonstrate in accomplishing that task. So in a sense, you're always thinking about the processes involved in completing the drawing as they exist in space and time, rather than what the ultimate outcome would be. So instead of thinking of the problem as a set of steps or stages, you begin with what the problem is, and find, you could say, a route through it. So one of the metaphors for problem solving, we could take as maze or labyrinth, and you're working your way through the problem, trying to either find the center of that problem or get yourself out of the problem. I like the idea of the latter conception, getting yourself out of the problem, because it also hints at another major metaphor in problem solving, which is eluding constraints, right? So one constraint would be if you're a two-dimensional object, you want to find a way to work yourself into the third dimension. If you exist singularly in space and you're a three-dimensional object, but you don't exist yet in time, you want to find a way to project yourself into time. And the act of drawing is itself, a set of motions and tracings that are performed in time. So it's easy to think about in that way. So we're going to begin, today with that idea of the labyrinth. And this was one of my, this is a solution set that I first developed in 1972. And the context for this solution set was that I had been struggling to form letters. I was in the first grade, and this was either the latter part of the first grade or the first part of the second grade. And I had a very difficult time writing, and I had a difficult time adding, and there was the issues that I have with dysgraphia and dyscalculia, and so an assessment was performed, and at this stage in scholastic assessments, because of my age, it wasn't a Scantron assessment. I didn't have to fill out a little bubble or anything like that, and I didn't have to make determinations over, A, B, or C, D choices. The questions, were presented on a page, and I could, use my pencil and fill in the answers. And the assessment was given because, they wanted to determine, whether I had some kind of limited brain function, or whatever their terminology was at the time, that would explain, the difficulties that I was having in learning these, basic skills. And it took the form of an IQ test. So the one that I remember was the presentation of a square. Now, if I get the angle right, you'll see that I've drawn a square, not perfectly, but well enough. And I can't quite get the angle right to demonstrate that this is a square. But if I, you can see how if I move the camera, the form appears, to change shape because, you see the image on a flat space and you merely project the three-dimensionality of all of this. So this is, you'll have to take my word for it, more or less a square. And it represents a field that was designated in the question. The question was very simple. If you lost an object in this field, describe how you would go about finding it. And so Aaron, let's take this not as merely an example of an assessment tool, but let's take it as a problem. And we could take it as an aesthetic problem. And I took it as a problem in solving the question in a way that would demonstrate that I could work myself out of the question, because I couldn't write. At that time, I had even more difficulty writing letters than I do now. And in the formulation of the question, describe, asked me to write letters describing the way that I would solve this problem. But I chose a different route, and that route was very much about transcending the space and the confinement of the question. So this is the route that I took, and I'll describe my answer to the question. So the question is, if you lost an object in this field, describe the manner in which you would go about finding it. Sometimes they'll complain about how long it takes for you to finish the test, Aaron.
Ha ha ha, a contract and fee through Theta. I like the way that this solution set is also a pun on the words Cretan and Cretan. Ha 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 ha.
You know, Aaron, I actually think that you're the first person that got that element of it.
So can I ask you a question? A contract and fee through Theta?
Sure, Aaron.
Why are those tiny lions attacking the man in this vase painting image?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I think those tiny lions are, or dogs, or whatever they might be. It's a little difficult to determine from the, obvious lack of realism in this, semi-flat rendering. But I think those tiny lions are forms that Thetis is taking. Thetis was a spirit of the water, and hence a shape changer and transformer. As water is so mutable, and I think this figure that these tiny lions are attacking is Peleus, and this describes an event prior to the marriage of Thetis and Peleus, in which he had to perform, he had to succeed in holding her as she transformed through these different shapes, and he was instructed on how to accomplish this by Proteus. And over here, this figure, he should be recognizable to you, right? Because of his lower extremities. That's Chiron, and I believe that Chiron is attending there, and there are his rabbits. He's been hunting. I believe that Chiron is attending this event because he will be the future teacher and mentor of their child. Similar to the way that I'm your teacher, and he will teach Achilles, their future child, how to be a hero. So these tiny lions, I believe, I could be mistaken, I'm not entirely sure, but I believe these tiny lions are forms that the water goddess or water nymph Thetis is taking. And water is an important part of this story too, right? Because Achilles, their child, Thetis brings into Hades. We've talked about different underworlds, and one of the rivers in Hades, the river called Styx, is possessed with this miraculous power. Like similar to the way that yesterday was the day of the bestowing of miraculous powers by one of the avatars of Durga. And in Greek mythology, one of the ways that you could receive this power of invulnerability was being bathing in this river called Styx. And so Thetis, water spirit and water goddess, brings her child Achilles to this river in Hades, and she dips him in that stream. In fact, she dips him 3 times. She holds him by the ankle, and you know that story. But here she is, looking very much like a tiny lion.